Okay, now that we've heard the nonsensical arguments from Eurocentrics, ethnocentrics, etc., let's look at Africa Resource. I believe this, ironically, this article is written by Rasta, and it definitively destroys their arguments. Now, listen very carefully. The article is titled, Race, Intelligence, and IQ. Are Blacks Smarter Than Whites? Last updated 3rd January 2014. The information presented above suggests that Africans-born blacks residing in Western countries as a group possess IQs that are between 5 and a full standard deviation, 15 IQ points, above that of whites living in these countries. So that the median for IQ for African blacks residing in the West should be about 110 if one accepts that research suggesting direct causal relationships between academic attainment levels and IQ. He cites Godfredson, 1998, and Ostrowski, 1999. Now, I again do not accept the IQ test as a valid test. In fact, that's what he's pretty much saying. If one suggests that research suggesting direct causal relationships between academic attainment levels and IQs. Research also shows that when African Americans are matched as to linguistic behavior, Black versus Standard English, literacy levels and to the comprehension of sayings require specific knowledge, literacy levels and to the comprehension of sayings requiring specific knowledge, that African Americans perform as well or better than do whites on IQ tests. Now this goes back to what I was saying, reading comprehension, cultural factors, environmental factors, social factors. What are IQ tests? IQ is a culturally and ideologically rooted construct, an index intended to predict success or outcomes that are valued as success by some people in Western societies. Remember, even the term IQ squared as a as a forum, as it's presented on YouTube. I'm pretty sure there's some kind of company or some kind of a project, but whatever it is, when they have these little talks and stuff and debates, it's coming from a Eurocentric perspective. It's saying IQ squared. It's not saying we're going to make you smarter. It's saying we're going to square your IQ. And remember that whites like to say that blacks have a lower IQ, and they try to use pseudoscience to prove it. So when you have a bunch of white people coming out with a company called IQ squared, they're saying we are superior and we are going to make you smarter, and you should value things from our inferior Western perspective. Anyway, the items on the test are largely measures of achievement at various levels of competency and are devised impressionistically by psychologists to simply mimic the psycholinguistic structures of schooling and middle-class clerical/administrative occupations. Now this is key. He nailed it right there. I mean, everything he's saying is superior to what they're saying. I mean, just the fact that this is his presentation versus the Eurocentric presentation. I mean, it just goes to show you that the different ways of thinking are there, and the white people present an inferior argument. This guy's like, look, he's breaking it down what it is. These people don't touch on the importance of IQ tests or the relevance. They just take it for granted that it must be correct. This guy challenges every aspect of it painstakingly and does a thorough job. That's probably why we built superior structures in Africa while they were building stone fucking huts in Europe. Anyway, Alfred Binet, the inventor of the first intelligence test, devised this instrument more than 100 years ago to screen children for educational difficulties and made clear its conceptual foundations. His interest was in the educational development of children and argued that his test could not be used for children over the age of 17. He also believed that the scores on his test could be radically improved through learning and instruction. So he's saying flat out, look, these do not show some kind of biological supremacy. These things show you how well you're being taught in school, and it's designed to catch people who are having trouble learning for whatever reason early on, so we can, give them more attention and help them catch up. It has nothing to do with biological supremacy. But these eugenicists in mental health completely fuck everything up, and twist everything. That's what they do. It's the white man's twist, and I assure you, I promise you, it is quite sinful and deadly, especially when coupled with the international white Jew financier. Stern, 1914, would devise what is known today as the concept of IQ, which stands simply for intelligence quotient. Stern's quotient system was too like Binet's test, designed for use exclusively with children and was not intended for use with adults. IQ tests were originally intended to be little more than devices for generating numbers that are useful in assessing academic aptitude within a given culture, and for use mainly with children. IQ tests sample some elements of intelligent behavior, and these elements are associated with academic performance. Capron et al. 1999. Traditional IQ tests do not measure the many forms of intelligence that are beyond more academically specific skills such as music, creativity, art, interpersonal and intrapersonal abilities. Bratton and Norman, 2006, Gardner, 2000, Armstrong, 1993. Okay, now, you see, in some of my songs I said they didn't understand the different forms of intelligence. Or you didn't understand the different forms of intelligence, speaking to the eugenicists and the idiots who team up with him and all the conformists. I said, because you're a motherfucking fool. Now think about what I said. I said, you people didn't understand the different forms of intelligence. Why? It's because you're righteous and upright? It's because you're an ideal citizen? Is it because you made an honest mistake? No, no, no. It's because you're a motherfucking fool, no matter how you slice it. Either you're not wise enough to tell the truth about something as important as that, or you're too stupid to see it. Either way, relative to someone such as myself, you opposition view bitches, and I do mean bitches, are motherfucking fools. Yeah. Anyway, the processes associated with schooling influence performance on IQ tests through a combination of direct instruction and indirect inculcation of modes of thinking and the values associated with the standardized testing. C.C. and Williams, 1997, C.C. 1991, Richardson, 2000, and 2002. Tests have a narrow focus on skills and tasks which are acquired and rehearsed through the processes of formal or informal schooling. C.C. and Williams, 1997, C.C. 1991, Kamen, 1974. IQ and similar tests are also unable to measure one's potential, are not independent from what is measured by achievement tests, and are not powerful predictors of low reading performance. Siegel, 1989, 1992, Bradshaw, 2001, Naglieri and Reardon, 1993, Rispins et al., 1991. Test results in one child can vary according to mood, motivation, and fatigue. While the tests themselves show prominent rehearsal learning effects, generally assume a degree of literacy and are largely framed to suit mainstream Western cultural requirements. Remember I said how they're hiding behind social norms? Western cultural norms, which influence mainstream social norms? Okay? And also notice they talk about fatigue, right? This also has to do with stress and nutrition. Do I really have to explain to you how these suburban ninnies and these rich, privileged white people eat better than poor people in the ghetto who might have a half-drunk 40 in their fucking refrigerator, typically? Okay? Thus, they are more fatigued, and it has to do with nutrition. Not from, doing a lot of sports or something, which would affect it as well. Also, the mood. When you are a marginalized person, and you know that, you're frowned on by society, and it's these cultural imperialists giving you the test, you might not be in such a great mood, generally speaking. Anyway, he cites C.C. and Williams, 1997, C.C. 1991, O'Brien, 2001, Richardson, 2000, 2002, Sternberg, 2004. For these reasons and others, many believe that the use of IQ tests should be abandoned. Siegel, 1989, 1992, Volantino et al., 2000, Bradshaw, 2001, Schoenemann, 1997. In addition, no tests except dynamic tests, see Sternberg and Grigorenko, 2002-ish, that require learning at the time of the test directly measure ability to learn. Traditional IQ tests focus on measuring past learning, typical of the kind acquired through the processes of formal schooling and cultural exchange. While these things are known to be heavily influenced by accessibility, motivation, and available opportunities to learn. You see how This guy is looking at the factors around the test and around the groups that he's talking about. These other people are just completely looking at biology, assuming the test is accurate and that everyone is in a favorable mind state to take the test. Absolute hypocrisy, stupidity, and it's either out of them being too stupid to see it, or they're too immoral to see it. People such as that should be banned from the academic community. They should be banned from teaching. They should not be allowed to be published because they are evil. Do we let pedophiles, teach kindergarten? Then why should we let a bunch of lying, evil, atheistic eugenicists into mental health and have their nonsense influence who is force medicated and who is sterilized as recently as 2015? Why did we allow for this? Because there are a bunch of cowards that are hiding behind white social norms. These people are pussies. They don't want to give someone a fair chance to compete with them. These are the same types of cowards that do not want to compete with me after they saw the last white-skinned person lose 10-0. They do not want you to make the link between martial art mental conditioning and mental performance or insight or intelligence or intellect. They don't want you to make that link. They don't want you to make the link between intellectual acuity and precision martial arts combat. They don't want you to make that link. Hereditability and IQ. This video is about racists and their one-sided studies to prove their racist points. I will definitively show you that eugenics is alive and well, and that mental health are the main people propagating these despicable falsehoods while pretending to be some sort of a positive liberal force or progressive force. Remember, Francis Galton was a progressive. Okay, he won many awards. So as I typed in Galton on Asians, I got a study from Canada. The same country where Donald Ewan Cameron did many of his MKUltra experiments. It is called Brain Size, IQ, and Racial Group Differences. Evidence from musculoskeletal traits. Now ask yourself, well, why would they bother to invest their time and money into figuring out the difference between a black IQ, a white, and an Asian? Why focus on these groups? I mean, that by itself screams that there are racists trying to prove that whites and Asians are superior, and that it is a natural reason, not a cultural reason, and that they mean to apply this quote-unquote understanding to politics. This was the Department of Psychology, University of Western Ontario, London, Ontario, Canada, N6A 5C2. Received 26 December 2001. Received and revised form 23rd April, 3 days after Hitler's birthday, 2002. Accepted 29 April 2002. Now, here's an abstract from the article. Some of you might say, well, they're not racist. Listen carefully. A review of the world literature on brain size and IQ by Rushton. And it cites Rushton J.P. 1995, Race, Evolution, and Behavior, A Life History Perspective, New Brunswick, New Jersey, transaction. Found that African-descended people, in parentheses, blacks, average cranial capacities of 1,267 centimeters cubed. European-descended people, whites, 1,347 centimeters cubed. Sorry, I'm being gassed heavily here by the same cheaters who come up with these studies. Anyway, and East Asian-descended people, East Asians in parentheses, 1,364 centimeters cubed. These brain size differences, containing millions of brain cells and hundreds of millions of synapses, were hypothesized to underlie the race differences on IQ tests, in which blacks average an IQ of 85. It later goes on in the article to say that sub-Saharan blacks average the IQ of 70, which destroys their argument by itself. We'll get into that in a second. Whites 100 and East Asian 106. So they put Asians above whites, just like Hitler did and just like Galton did. The validity of the race differences in brain size, however, continues to be disputed. Now, most of you don't know that about Hitler. Hitler said that the whites were the master race and they had to screen out their race a certain way. But rather, Asians did a better job of their eugenics and of their culture, bringing out an average person that was superior to whites. So that's a thing that a lot of you don't understand. Hitler believed that the master race was amongst the whites and it had to do with their relationship with Asians. That's why he went to the Himalayas or wherever looking for evidence of this. Anyway, the validity of the race differences in brain size, however, continues to be disputed. In the present study, the race differences in brain size are correlated with 37 musculoskeletal variables shown in standard evolutionary textbooks to change systematically with increments in brain size. The 37 variables include cranial traits such as jaw size and shape, tooth size and shape, muscle attachment sites, and orbital bone indentations, and postcranial traits such as pelvic width, thigh bone curvature, and knee joint surface area. Across the three populations, the ecological correlations, Jensen AR, 1998, the G factor, Westport, Connecticut, between brain size and the 37 morphological traits averaged a remarkable R equals 0.94. And some sort of a symbol, I don't know what it is, it looks like a P equals 0.94. If the races did not differ in brain size, these correlations could not have been found. It must be concluded that the race differences in average brain size are securely established. As such, brain size related variables provide the most likely biological mediators of the race differences in intelligence. Now, first very obvious mistake. The last four words, race differences in intelligence. So this person is taking it as for granted. He's saying, look, this IQ test definitively shows, intelligence quotient. It definitively shows you how smart you are, which is nonsense. That has never been established. It never will be established. It's simply not the truth. The Binet-Simon test and different tests over the years have been changed because they have never accurately been able to quantify or accurately describe intelligence through any test. That's nonsense. Let's give a test on, sports celebrities and see who scores the highest. Let's give a test on, the history of marijuana and see who scores the highest. I mean, depending on what you're testing on, different groups of people will do better. We all know that whites and Asians tend to have better schools. They live in better areas. So these IQ tests, which almost always include math, they're going to score better. We all know that blacks have been encouraged not to read and whites and Asians have been encouraged to read. So any tests that have a reading comprehension variable, favor the whites and Asians. Okay? And these are environmental factors, sociological factors. These are not biological mediators or biological factors. So let me read that again for you. As such, brain size related variables provide the most likely biological mediators of the race differences in intelligence. These racists are saying flat out, it's because black people have the smallest brain size that they have the lowest IQ. Now let's go on to the introduction. In the US and around the world, East Asians and their descendants average an IQ of about 106. Europeans and their descendants about 100. And Africans and their descendants about 85. The lowest average IQ scores are reported for sub-Saharan Africa, about 70. Jensen, 1998, Lin and Van Hanen, 2002, Rushton, 2000. Okay, now, their argument is that sub-Saharan Africans score the lowest on the IQ test. Well, then please explain to me how they score higher on average than any group you just named, the Nigerian Americans. Explain that. It's not like Nigerians are super smart and all the sub-Saharan Africans around them are stupid. There's cultural factors at play here. If this is completely nature and has nothing to do with nurture, then you must concede that Nigerians are a superior race to all the races you just mentioned. So why didn't you put that in your study? There is no contrary evidence presented in the study, in the paper, in the PDF. None. Just this, and this proves our point. This proves our point. This proves our point. This proves our point. Bunch of fabricated white people. You know, call me crazy, but I doubt very much that Jensen, Lynn, and Vanahanen and Rushton were fucking black. I doubt they were from sub-Saharan Africa. You know, these are a bunch of white people with fabricated studies, biased studies, excluding relevant facts so that a bunch of other white people can do eugenics on black people. Period. Period. And it was the Department of Psychology at the University of Western Ontario. Why isn't it maybe anthropology, or, you know, why isn't this the biology department? Why is it psychology? Because mental health is full of a bunch of racist, atheistic eugenicists that cannot get over the fact that they are shown up by Nigerians. They will, mark my words, they will never concede that Nigerians have put them to shame. They come here speaking English as like a 4th, 5th, 6th language. They outperform them in school, in their own white American schools, with white American teachers across the world from where they live. Why isn't that factored in? That is extremely relevant to this. First of all, you need a valid IQ test. Remember, these are the mental health bitches who do not have a valid diagnostic test for mental illness and pretend that they do. Are you surprised that they pretend they have a valid intelligence test and act on it? These people force medicate people every day. They electroshock people. Electroshock therapy is applied every day across the fucking world, across the globe, when they don't have a valid diagnostic test for a mental illness. Do you think for 1 second that these people will hesitate to apply the results of these inferior, nonsensical, illogical, unscientific studies to our everyday life? These are the liars. These are the biggest liars in history. These are atheist dogs. When will you people get it through your head? And why do you think they're using Buddhism? Because they think Asians are so smart and Buddhism is so scientific and oh. Why don't we talk about volume of penis size? Why don't we talk about who is our top athletes and why? Why don't we talk about cultural factors? All these people focus on, the same way that the eugenicists did, it's biological traits. And they do not accurately describe how these traits affect behavior and performance. That's like saying, well, this person is taller and he has longer legs. Therefore, by default, he is faster than people with shorter legs. Does that make sense to you? Ironically, that's more logical than what they're saying. They're going to take the least understood organ of the body, the brain, the least understood organ of the body, and turn around and say, this means something. We don't understand it, but this means something, and it must mean this. Therefore, my race must be superior. Bravo, bravo! You're so smart. Oh. Stupid. It is fucking stupid. And they use all this intellectual jargon. It's the same eugenicist method that has always existed. They go, just like with Hitler, they go out of their way to make all these measurements of the brain, of the skull, and all this stuff. Oh, let's look at this and this and this, and let's pretend it means something. They use all the scientific terms, so people who aren't really familiar with science, look at it and say, oh my goodness, These people must be right. A bunch of white hicks from the South say, yes, sirree, that sure proves it. Them God-starved niggers are less intelligent than we are. Eh? Scientific racism in the 21st century. It's these same types of liars in secret societies talk about true potential. We must reach the true potential of the whites and the Asians and the Jews, and we must repopulate Africa with Asian people. We must take control of humanity. We can have a few token blacks in zoos and museums, maybe give them a reservation somewhere, but we need to repopulate the planet with whites, Asians, and Jews. Bravo! Bravo! We'll make it a Buddhist world. A new age, kind of deeper materialism Buddhist world. TED Talks, IQ squared, you know. Just fucking stupidity. Not a single mention of the study of Nigerian performance in school in any eugenicist journal, article, publication, what have you. Not a single one. Any evidence that definitively proves you wrong is omitted in favor of white devil nonsense. These are the liars. It's mental health. They all should be lined up and exterminated like the rats they are. Thank you. Hereditability and IQ. Despite what some have argued in the past, there is no serious evidence which has demonstrated IQ tests to measure either an inborn property or what is commonly understood to mean intelligence. See Hirsch, 1970, 1997, 2004. Schoenman, 1997C, 2005. Schoenman and Schoenman, 1994. Kempthorne, 1978, 1997. Capron et al., 1999. Veda, 2002, Walston, 1981, 1990, Capron and Veda, 2001. Intelligence is a highly subjective and culturally confounded concept, which remains largely undefined. Schoenman, 1997, Sternberg, 2007, Cole et al., 1971, Gutman, 1992. The twin and adoption studies commonly used to report hereditability estimates and in relationship to IQ tests have also been shown to be suspicious in nature. The biometrical school of scientists who fit models to IQ data traces their history to R. Fisher, 1918, but their genetic models have been shown to have virtually no predictive value. Veda, 2002, Veda, 1976, Capron and Veda, 2001, Capron et al., 1999, Schoenman, 1997. For example, statistical models used in twin studies and inferences from them relating to IQ tests lack statistical validity and are thus of dubious value. Capron et al., 1999, Kempthorne, 1997, Schoenman, 1997, Schoenman and Schoenman, 1994. Walston, 1981, argues that errors are so widespread in the hereditability literature that the critical reader has good reason to doubt every article published on the topic in relationship to IQ. Yeah, you see that? He said this guy's a scholar. He said, look, I see it the way that the great Szigeti does. I mean, these people are so full of shit, just like a psychiatrist, mind you, that the good reader should say, well, you know, that's the fucking liars who always lie. These people are unscientific. They're liars. They're biased. They're ethnocentric trash. Inferior forms of life. Trying to educate superior minds and people with a higher moral standard on how to live their lives. You know, type of stuff. Anyway. He goes further stating that it is necessary to check the arithmetic, algebra, and original references before seriously considering any conclusions. How pathetic is that? These so-called great scientific minds who are trying to influence society, making simple arithmetic, not checking their arithmetic, not checking their algebra, things that little kids in first grade could have checked for them. I don't think you understand that. These liars, these eugenicist morons, don't even check their arithmetic before they insult people and set up the stage for people to be murdered, sterilized, and worse. That's mental health for you. Bunch of scum. For example, the most widely used hereditability method now is based on a paper by Jinks and Folker, 1970. However, this method contains an algebraic error that renders its application in most instances worthless. Pathetic. Sounds like a German too, right? It's German, German efficiency. I don't know if he's a German, but it would be fucking funny if he was. Anyway, Kaplan and Schoenman, 1997, 1999, 1990. Schoenman, 1997, shows that conventional hereditability estimates often produce absurdly high values for variables that cannot possibly be genetic. He found that if one applies the traditional hereditability arithmetic to the twin data collected by Lohan and Nichols, 1976, that the answer to the question, did you take a bubble bath last year, is 90% genetic. This is typical of psychologists, mental health. This is typical of these eugenicist dogs. And to this day, I have moron white trash pussies citing this kind of nonsense. Oh, the IQ test and the brain size and they don't know what the fuck they're talking about. They don't know what the fuck they're talking about. I'm trying to tell you people, eugenicists don't know what they're talking about. Psychiatrists don't know what they're talking about, and the two have been working together since eugenics was started. What does that tell you? The fuck does that tell you? Kempthorne argues that the concept of hereditability is important to plant and animal breeding because it is possible to design and carry out experiments to estimate variance components, but that data on humans is observational and individuals are not randomly assigned to environments and should, for these reasons, be ignored. Let me read that again for you. That's what I've been saying for a long time. Environmental factors. Okay? The concept for hereditability is important for plant and animal breeding. Darwin. Okay? Darwin contradicted Galton. He said Galton doesn't know what he's talking about. There are countless cases of Darwin coming out saying Galton is wrong about this. He's wrong about the blood in this species. He's wrong about this, this, and this. Countless examples. Okay? So this guy's saying, yes, it's important when it comes to plant and animals. But when it comes to this pseudo-scientific nonsense such as Galton, and eugenics and hereditability, okay? The data on humans is observational. Just like psychiatry and their so-called empirical evidence, they're observations. The data on human is observational. Non-scientific, unscientific, observational. And individuals are not randomly assigned to environments and should for these reasons be ignored. Look, there's such things called urban planning, city planning. There are serious social factors that are fucking determinants, that are not considered when you're doing these hereditability studies. All these studies should be ignored. You don't know what the fuck you're talking about. You're sickos. A psychologist administering an IQ test to different kinships, e.g. twins, is not manipulating either the genetic or environmental factors as is done in animal experiments. Thus, their estimates tend to be speculation in absence of any definitive proof. Look, mental health is full of scum who lie, and their lies are applied to eugenic policies to this day under the guise of social biology and social policies. Why don't you people get that? These are scumbags that you're sending your kids to be evaluated. These are racist eugenicists. These are the most racist people. They have their racism down to a pseudo-science. These people are scum, and they are non-Christian garbage. Self-confessed atheistic scum. Thus, their estimates tend to be speculation in absence of any definitive proof. So you have a bunch of white, privileged ninnies speculating on racial supremacy, and lo and behold, I don't think any of us are surprised that they come up with the conclusion that their race is superior. Them and the races that are closest to them. That's why they're called Caucasians. That's why it's Eurasia. Lo and behold, them and their neighbors are this master races. Lo and fucking behold. And they are like parrots, repeating Hitler and Galton's claims. Two of the most ridiculed idiots in scientific history. Anyway, for a good reason, mind you. Many well-regarded statistical and biometrical experts have argued that the true hereditability of IQ is probably closer to zero. Schoenman, Capron, Veda, Walston, Veda and Koru, Taylor, Hirsch, Kempthorne. Dates ranging from, it should be on the screen. Dates ranging from 1970 to 2004. Indeed, literacy and acculturation have been shown to predict IQ score differences between groups and individuals better than any other variables. Boone, 2007, Manley et al., 1998, Fagan and Holland, 2002, 2007, Ryan et al., 2005. So what you see here is there are some white people who are like, look, you guys are sick. We're going to have no part in this. We're going to tell the truth so we can save face for white people, and we're real scientists, okay? You're making white people look bad. They're going to come around, they're going to see your errors, and we are going to go down in history as scum who killed off whole ethnic groups and races of people, under the pretense of this pseudo-scientific racism. Stop it! Stop it right now! Stop it right now! You are not doing the white race any favors. You are not helping the world. You are not good people. Stop being selfish. Stop lying. Stop pretending that you're superior. And that's white people telling them that without saying it in those words with their tests. They're like, look, this is nonsense. Don't pay attention to those fucking inbred pieces of shit. Don't listen to those secret society pussies. This is nonsense. Why the racial controversy? While one will find many flaws and inconsistencies associated with the concept of IQ, this has not managed to sway some hard-nosed advocates from continuing to promote the test's practical merits for predicting academic success and occupational status within Western market-based societies. This, in spite of the test's predictive value in these areas, also have been roundly challenged. Schoenman, Siegel, Bradshaw, Sternberg, Frank. Some of the more ardent IQ advocates have gone so far as to argue that the possible reason many blacks and other minorities do not achieve in areas related to academic attainment and occupational status, particularly in the U.S., is not due to historical racism or negative societal factors, but instead because of factors that relate to low IQ scores. Ignoring historical events, slavery and Jim Crow, economic and educational biases, Patillo, 1999, Diamond and Spillman, 2004, Roskigno, 1998, 1998, The Effects of Culture and Cultural Differences, Valsiner, 2000, Cole et al., 1971, Serpo R., 1979, Ogbu and Simmons, 1998. The questionable methodology and theory involved in IQ tests, Schoenman, 1997, 2005, Goodman, 1990, Hirsch, and so on and so forth. Poor test validity and predictive values, Schoenman, Bradshaw, Sternberg. Test bias, Manley, Helms, Quate, Baldwin, and Bell, Bursboom. And overwhelming criticism leveled against hereditability estimates, Capron, Schoenman, Hirsch, Kempthorne, Lids, and Bott, Joseph, Veda. These advocates tend to proceed with their arguments unaltered. So basically, they ignore the things that are being said by people like me and the people who see it my way in the established academic community and who have graduated from prestigious colleges, and they proceed because they have an agenda that comes straight down from the white racist elements of society, including Freemasonry. For example, in 1994, authors Herrnstein and Murray, in their controversial book, The Bell Curve, argued that a dysgenic trend exists in Western societies that foresee the establishment of a cognitive elite. Although their work was subject to wide and often scathing criticism, the authors managed to generate a substantial amount of media attention, which helped to perpetrate negative ethnic stereotypes in the formal literature and in public discourse for a number of years. You see how these people, look, there are eugenicists. 1994, he said, look, the Bell Curve, there's a dysgenic trend that we see the establishment of a cognitive elite, of this kind of superior, hereditary, fucking group of scum, you know, that with hereditary traits that make them this cognitive elite, you know, and they were mocked by society. Now you tell me why a bunch of rich people handpick these disingenuous dogs. See, oh, I like what he's saying. Let's apply that to public policy. I agree with you completely. I like what he's saying. Yeah, he makes me look good. That's what's going on here. That's what's going on here. I like how this religion makes our, you know, us rich people look. We'll use that religion. I like what this eugenicist is saying that makes us rich people look superior. Let's use him. Let's appoint him. You know, let's make him a czar in the next administration. Okay, so many IQ advocates argue that a general index of cognitive ability is the single best predictor of virtually all criteria considered necessary for success in life in the western part of the developed world. Schmidt, Wons, and Hunter, 1992, and maintain that the average undergraduate, those who graduate from college or university, must possess an IQ that is on average no lower than 115. So they say, look, if you're going to graduate, if you're an undergraduate, you must possess an IQ that is no lower than 115. While individuals who are able to attain a graduate level degree must on average possess an IQ in the range of 125. This often serves the implied purpose of suggesting that blacks and other minorities do not go on to or graduate from institutions of higher learning and ultimately move on to professional careers and economic success, not because of matters relating to personal interest, financial ability, or the equality of schooling received in the past, but instead because of factors relating to IQ scores. Jensen, Gottfredson. Arguments such as these tend to also to base themselves within the shaky framework that is nature versus nurture. In this case, does more develop IQ? Does more school develop high IQ, or does a high IQ equal more school and greater socioeconomic success? Jensen, 1980. Gottfredson, 1998. Others have pointed out simply that the correlation between IQ scores and school performance is one deliberately built into tests, and that processes associated with schooling directly influence test performance. Richardson, 2010. So now we are going to get onto the level, to the next. This one is the key to what I've been saying. Black African immigrants significantly exceed whites in levels of education. Now, I'm sure you all know my style by now. When I come across something good, more often than not, before I even finish reading it, when I scan through it, I decide, you know what, I'm going to read it while I'm presenting it, and I'm going to give my opinions as I go. I'm sure you've noticed that by now. I have never read this article before. And he uses countless valid sources to prove what I've been saying with different valid sources. I cited the New York Times. All right. So now we're going to get into the meat of this, shall we? Remember, keep in mind that black Africans or sub-Saharan Africans, which is, you know, what they're referring to more often than not. Most of these black Africans are from Kenya and Nigeria and, you know, different, sub-Saharan African nations. They outperform whites. So if you remove the societal factors, the social and environmental factors, the cultural factors, if you remove these and only look at performance, and I pointed this out before, then you must say that Nigerians are the second smartest group of people in the world. I do not believe this myself. The evidence would allow me to do what these white racists have attempted to do with their race. But I do not do it. Because I am not a racist. I resent races, and I resent race-based groups that have been teaming up against me, like the gang stalkers. I resent race-based fraternities that gang stalk people. I resent race-based Freemasonic groups like the Scottish Rite that are almost entirely white people. I resent race-based Zionist groups that are basically all Zionist, white Jews. I resent these people. When I call them names, it's because I resent what they are doing, not because I'm racist. It's because they have insulted me for decades before I was born with their pseudo-scientific nonsense. And with that same pseudo-scientific nonsense and the resulting mainstream social norms, they are trying to say that I'm mentally ill, that I'm unworthy of life, that I shouldn't reproduce. They are trying to put me beneath them every way they can. From mockery and trolling, trying to make me seem like an idiot, to trying to get me to settle for some fucking heifer. Any way they can think of. Now you tell me, in my shoes, would you not be tempted to call these people fucking names? Okay, so we are at the key part of this video. Black African immigrants significantly exceed whites in level of education. African-born blacks comprise about 16% of the U.S. foreign-born black population, U.S. Bureau of the Census 2000, and are considerably more educated than other immigrants. So you can say, this argument that, well, immigrants tend to work harder. Well, how come they're outperforming the white immigrants, the Asian immigrants? There goes that argument, right? The vast majority of these immigrants come from minority white countries in East and West Africa, e.g. Kenya and Nigeria, while less than 2% originate from North or South Africa. CIA World Factbook 2004, Yearbook of Immigration Statistics 2003. Now remember, the irony that Francis Galton was a statistician. Okay, he came up with different theories of statistics. And he was given awards for this type of bitch shit. The irony of the statistics then proving him definitively wrong. And yet, these cowardly eugenicist pussies are playing stupid or being stupid. Either way, they are unworthy of any publication. When you have somebody is disingenuous, is a liar, and they're trying to print their lies as fact, it's your responsibility as a magazine, as a university, to not allow them to publish. When you have somebody who's completely incompetent, why would you publish them? Anyway, an analysis of Census Bureau data by the Journal of Blacks in Higher Education, 1999 to 2000, and the Lewis Mumford Center for Comparative Urban and Regional Research, 2003, find that black African immigrants to the United States are more likely to be college educated than any other immigrant group, which included those from Europe, North America, and Asia. Also see NISBET 2002, U.S. Bureau of the Census 2000. African immigrants have also been shown to be more highly educated than any native-born ethnic group, including white and Asian Americans. So, I did make a slight mistake. I assumed that Jews outperformed blacks because it was a Jewish author, a Jewish writer who was showing the facts in the NY Times, I think opinion section. So, they outperform everyone, including the Jews. Ain't that a bitch? So instead of being the second race, we're the master race according to the scale of the white man. So all you white people, don't mind if we sterilize all you people, so Nigerians can propagate. It's for the best of, it's for the future of humanity, man. We got to make sure that the human stock is strong. So we're going to sterilize all you inferior whites and Asians and, non-black people. No, we're not, obviously. Obviously, I wouldn't do that. Why wouldn't I do that? Because that's fucking sick. Because I'm not a sicko. Because I'm not a piece of shit. Because I'm not a godless heathen. Sorry for yelling. Anyway. So, let me read this again. African immigrants have also been shown to be more highly educated than any native-born ethnic group, including white and Asian Americans. Logan and Deanne, 2003. Williams, 2005. The Economist, 1996. Arthur, 2000. Selassie, I don't know. I don't think that's the emperor. I think it's something else. I think it's a scholar. 1998, Nisbet, 2002. So when it's in The Economist, which is not exactly a black magazine, you can imagine it's true. Most research suggests that between 43.8 and 49.3% of all African immigrants in the United States hold a college diploma. Nipset 2002, Charles 2007, U.S. Census 2000. This is slightly more than the percentage of Asian immigrants to the U.S., substantially greater than the percentage of European immigrants, nearly double that of native-born white Americans, nearly 4 times the rate of native-born African Americans, and more than 8 times that of some Hispanic groups. Williams, 2005, Nisbet, 2002, Kent, 2007, The Journal of Blacks in Higher Education, 1990 to 2000, U.S. Census, 2000. Black immigrants from Africa have also been shown to have rates of college graduation that are more than double of that of the U.S.-born population in general. Williams, 2005. For example, in 1997, 19.4% of all adult African immigrants in the United States held a graduate degree, compared to 8.1% of adult whites, a difference of more than double, and 3.8% of adult blacks in the United States, respectively. The Journal of Blacks in Higher Education, 1999 to 2000. This shows that America has an equally large achievement gap between white Americans and African-born immigrants as between native-born white and black Americans. So you can see how intellectually dishonest these people who dominate the fields of psychology and mental health are. I mean, these people are sickos. They are liars. And I would go as far as to say that at least 90%, at least, that's conservative estimate, at least 90% of them know that they're wrong. And they are propagating despicable falsehoods for the purpose of furthering white supremacy and white supremacist agendas. In the UK in 1988, the Commission for Racial Equality conducted an investigation on the admission practices of St. George's and other medical colleges, who set aside a certain number of places for minority students. The informal quota system reflected the percentage of minorities in the general population. It was discovered that minority students with Chinese, Indian, or Black African heritage had higher academic qualifications for university admission than did whites. Blacks in Britain from the West Indies had lower academic credentials than whites. In fact, blacks with African origins over the age of 30 had the highest educational qualifications of any ethnic groups in the British Isles across 1994. According to the 1991 British Census, 26.5% of black Britons who were born in Africa had at least some college education. In contrast, only 13.4% of white Britons had gone to college. Thus, the evidence pointed to the fact that minority quotas for university admissions were actually working against students from these ethnic groups who were on average more qualified for higher education than their white peers. Across 1994, also see Dustman and Theodoropoulos, sounds like a Greek, 2006. So I'm going to make 4 points that completely destroy the arguments that I haven't already addressed, such as the academic performance argument. And not only America, but in Britain as well, African immigrants on average actually outperform white people. So let's go to the 4 points, shall we? 1, Europeans were kicked out of Africa. You know, they ended up in Russia and Poland and England and Iceland and places that were cold and far away, places where they had to really struggle to survive. Not ideal places for man to immigrate to. So when we look at Scandinavia and so on, when we look at where it started, they were in a position when it started that they were in a critical situation where mental conditioning, natural ability, and physical prowess mattered. It wasn't enough to be big and strong. They had to use their minds, learn to use combat arts with spears, and learn to organize and fight back. They couldn't hack it, so they left. Now, I'm not racist, but history makes 100% clear that North Africa was populated by Native Africans, and the Africans from the Middle Belt in West Africa, Sub-Saharan Africa, migrated to Nekkin and Nubia to join their fellow African brothers there, and they created Egypt. It's not a coincidence that the pyramids are in Africa, and they appear around the time of massive migrations from obviously more black African places. The pyramids aren't in the Middle East. They're not in Arabia. They're not in Europe. They're not in Asia. They are right by the place where Africans migrated to in large, large numbers. And the Nile flows south to north. So when you look at the facts here, civilization started with black African peoples. Why didn't it start in somewhere else? You know, if it was really, you know, Semites who did it, well, why didn't they build pyramids in Turkey, Iran, you know, in Persia, Afghanistan? You know, why weren't the pyramids built in China or something? Well, because it was black people who came up with it, obviously. It's a no-brainer. It's a no fucking brainer. And when one sees that there was attempts to build things in other places, it becomes more and more obvious. Also, they went to great distances to get the materials to build the pyramids. So the argument that, well, it was built right where the materials are doesn't hold any weight. They went to Korea. They went far away. They went far away to get the materials, brought them back, and then built the pyramids with them. So going on to the next, number 2, the barbaric lands of the north were just that, barbaric. They weren't very civilized. They were interested in pagan science. Later on, they would be interested in, you know, primitive metal making, you know, metallurgy, you know, and bronze and iron and so on with the different ages. But they were very primitive people who did not show any signs of being some sort of an advanced race. So when you go back to when everybody was equal and everybody had an equal chance to express excellence, which is not the case these days, and any sociologist will tell you that, you just don't see the whites or the Asians excelling. It's only after the Africans build the pyramids and help whites come up with Rome do you see Asian and European civilizations advancing and coming up with fancy masonry and so on. And this obviously shows that through the trade routes and through the shipping routes and different routes, you know, the Silk Road and different, you know, trade routes, that the idea of masonry and astrology and astronomy started, and the arts and sciences were, you know, taken from Africa and spread. And these other races expressed these ideas in an effort to impress each other and to impress upon each other that they are civilized, they are advanced, they are organized, and as a way for the ruling class, the monarchies and the kings, to show that, you know, they had their stuff together and that they were respectable. And as you can see, over time, they've turned around and twisted that to make it seem like they were superior. And this, you know, this is simply the truth. Remember, I'm black and white. I have no reason to lie. They have all the reason in the world to lie because they are the greedy thieves and the cheaters and the liars. So the grain from Egypt helped civilize Rome. So it wasn't just the arts and sciences. It was also the grain. So it wasn't just the brain from Africa. It was the grain from Africa that helped these people gain the upper hand and then claim that the Africans were insane when they are the sick ones. Those of them who do this, not all white people, but those who make these absurd claims. Anyway, so it allowed them to allocate resources to inventions, masonry, science, art, and different aspects of Roman culture, the daily life of Rome. And I have many books here, you know, the daily life of Rome and so on, Roman Empire, and, you know, different books about the different Caesars and so on. You know, I've done my research. It's very obvious that it was because of their campaigns and their tributes and their grain that they were allowed to sit there and catch up to Africa and eventually pass them up. While they were taking the food and the riches from Africa and keeping them down so Africans couldn't maintain their trajectory of domination. So we go to the last point. The brain size argument does not hold true. The brain size varies from the size of the mammal or the person. The more recent studies actually show that blacks tend to have bigger brains, and I'll leave it there. You know, really the brain size doesn't matter either way, but once you look at the newer studies, it's a wrap, and thank you.